$28.535 million total, followed by the engines at $79 million, 25 to 26%, systems and interiors at $56 million each, 18 to 17%, then avionics at $152 million, 5 to 6%. 42. Flight testing and certification. The first flight took place on the 29th of January, 2016, at Renton Municipal Airport, 43, nearly 49 years after the maiden flight of the original 737-100, on April 9, 1967. 1. The first MAX 8-1001 was used for aerodynamic trials, flutter testing, stability and control, and takeoff performance data verification, before it was modified for an operator and delivered. 1002 was used for performance and engine testing, climb and landing performance, crosswind, noise, cold weather, high altitude, fuel burn and water ingestion. Aircraft systems including autoland were tested with 1003. 1004, with an airliner layout, flew function and reliability certification for 300 hours with a light flight test instrumentation. 44. The 737 MAX gained FAA certification on March 8, 2017, 45, 46. And in the same month was approved by EASA on the 27th of March, 2017. 47. After completing 2,000 test flight hours and 180-minute ETOPS testing requiring 3,000 simulated flight cycles in April 2017, CFM International notified Boeing of a possible manufacturing quality issue with low pressure turbine, LPT, discs. In LEAP 1B engines. 48. Boeing suspended 737 MAX flights on May 4, 49, and resumed flights on May 12. 50. During the certification process, the FAA delegated many evaluations to Boeing, allowing the manufacturer to review their own product. 43. 51. It was widely reported that Boeing pushed to expedite approval of the 737 MAX to compete with the Airbus A320neo, which hit the market 9 months ahead of Boeing's model. 52. Entry into service. The Boeing 737 MAX 8 entered service with Lion Air's subsidiary Malindo Air, wearing Batik Air Malaysia livery. The first delivery was a MAX 8. Handed over to Malindo Air, a subsidiary of Lion Air, on the 16th of May, 2017. It entered service on May 22. 2. Norwegian Air International was the second airline to put a 737 MAX into service, when it performed its first transatlantic flight with a MAX 8 named Sir Freddie Laker on the 15th of July, 2017. Between Edinburgh Airport in Scotland and Bradley International Airport in the U.S. state of Connecticut. 53. Boeing aimed for 737 MAX to match the 99.7% dispatch reliability of the 737 next generation, in. 54. Southwest Airlines. The launch customer took delivery of its first 737 MAX on the 29th of August, 2017. 55. Boeing planned to deliver at least 50 to 75 aircraft in 2017, 10-15% of the more than 500 737s to be delivered in the year. 49. Grounding and recertification. The 737 MAX was grounded by FAA to allow its MAX redesign in 2019. The Boeing 737 MAX was grounded worldwide after a malfunctioning flight control system caused 2 new aircraft to crash in Indonesia, Lion Air Flight 610 on the 29th of October, 2018, and Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 on the 10th of March, 2019. killing all 346 people on board both flights. 56. China became the first air authority to ground the aircraft on March 11, 2019, setting a worldwide precedent as Singapore, India, Turkey, South Korea. The European Union, Australia and Malaysia followed the next day. The United States Federal Aviation Administration was one of the last to ground the aircraft, defending against groundings by issuing a continued airworthiness notice to operators on the 11th of March, garnering widespread controversy before finally grounding it on the 13th of March, 2019. Investigations faulted a Boeing cover-up of a defect and lapses in the FAA's certification of the aircraft for flight. After being charged with fraud, Boeing settled to pay over $2.5 billion in penalties and compensation. Further investigations also revealed that the United States Federal Aviation Administration and Boeing had colluded on recertification test flights, attempted to cover up important information, and that the FAA had retaliated against whistleblowers. 7. In the 20 months during the grounding, Boeing redesigned the computer architecture that supported the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, MCAS, while investigations faulted aircraft design and certification lapses. Flawed information from a single external sensor fed into the system caused it to repeatedly push planes' noses down as pilots struggled to keep them in the air before both crashes. 57. Boeing faces legal and financial consequences, as no deliveries of the MAX could be made while the aircraft was grounded, and airliners cancelled more orders than Boeing produced during this period. Boeing found foreign object debris in the fuel tanks of 35 of 50 grounded 737 MAX aircraft that were inspected, and had to check the remainder of the 400 undelivered planes. 58. Boeing had similar problems with 787s produced in South Carolina. 59. The FAA curtailed Boeing's delegated authority and invited global aviation stakeholders to comment on pending changes to the aircraft and top-pilot training. The FAA lifted its grounding order in 2020, winking sad smiley 60. All aircraft must be repaired to comply with various airworthiness directives. 61. After being charged with fraud in connection of both crashes of the 737 MAX, Boeing settled by paying over $2.5 billion, a criminal monetary penalty of $243.6 million, 10%, $1.77 billion in damages to airline customers, 70%, and $500 million to a crash victim beneficiaries fund, 20%. 63. In April 2022, families of U.S. crash victims began petitioning a U.S. federal judge in Texas to scrap the settlement and reopen the criminal case, arguing that the U.S. Department of Justice, USDOJ, violated the Crime Victims' Rights Act in settling without consulting with families, and that the USDOJ should not have agreed to shield senior Boeing executives from prosecution. U.S. DOJ prosecutors assert that the settlement is lawful because it cannot be proven that a crime was committed against the crash victims. 64. On the 20th of January, 2023, a U.S. District Court judge ordered Boeing to appear at a January 26 arraignment to discuss whether the company should face a felony charge of criminal conspiracy in the case. 65. Production slowdown and suspension. From mid-April 2019, Boeing announced that it was temporarily cutting production of the 737 aircraft from 52 per month to 42 amid the 737 MAX groundings. 66. Production of the LEAP-1B engine continued at an unchanged rate, enabling CFM to catch up its backlog within a few weeks. 67. As the 737 MAX recertification moved into 2020, Boeing suspended production from January to conserve cash and prioritize stored aircraft delivery. 68, 69. The 737 MAX program was the company's largest source of profit. 70. Around 80% of the 737 production costs involve payments to parts suppliers, which may be as low as $10 million per plane. 71. After the announcement, Moody's cut Boeing's debt ratings in December, citing the rising costs due to the grounding and the production halt, including financial support to suppliers and compensation to airlines and lessors, which could lower the program's margins and cash generation for years. 72. The rating agency also warned that the production halt would have wide and harmful impact to the whole aerospace and defense supply chain, and the ramp-up would be slower than previously anticipated. 73. CFM International reduced production of the LEAP 1B for the 737 MAX, in favor of the LEAP 1A for the Airbus A320neo, but was prepared to meet demand for both aircraft. 74. Boeing did not publicly say how long the suspension would last. The last pre-suspension fuselage-centered final assembly in early January 2020. Boeing was reported to internally expect production to be halted for at least 60 days. 75. Industry observers began to question if Boeing's projection of record production rate of 57 per month will ever be reached. 76. In early April, the COVID-19 pandemic led Boeing to shut down its other airliner production lines. 77. And further delayed recertification of the MAX. 78. Recertification and return to service. The Brazilian low-cost carrier Gol was the first to resume 737 MAX revenue flight on December 9, 2020. In early January 2020, an issue was discovered in the MAX software update which impacted its recertification effort. 79. As of mid-January, Boeing expected the MAX to return to service by mid-2020. 80. In late April, following the COVID-19 pandemic, Boeing then hoped to win regulatory approval by August 2020. 81. Between the 29th of June and July 1st, the FAA and Boeing conducted a series of recertification test flights. 82. Transport Canada and EASA each concluded their own independent recertification flights in late August and early September. 83. On the 18th of November, the FAA announced the MAX had been cleared to return to service. Before individual aircraft could resume service, repairs were required as set out in an airworthiness directive from the FAA. Airline training programs also required approval. 84. On December 3rd, American Airlines made a demonstration flight for journalists to explain the FAA required modifications to regain public trust. 85. The first airline to resume regular passenger service was Brazilian low-cost Gol on December 9. 86. The first in the United States was American Airlines on December 29. 87. Transport Canada and EASA both cleared the MAX in late January 2021, subject to additional requirements. 88. 89. Other regulators worldwide progressively ungrounded the aircraft, including those in the UAE, Australia, Kenya, and Brazil. 90. The Indian Directorate General of Civil Aviation, DGCA, rescinded its ban on MAX airplanes in late August on the condition that they meet the requirements set by the FAA and EASA. 91. China's Civil Aviation Regulator, CARC, cleared the 94 jets stored by 11 carriers in China to fly again in December 2021. Deliveries of approximately 120 planes stored by Boeing resumed in early 2022. With over 180 countries out of 195 having lifted grounding. 92. However, EASA forbade airlines from performing RNPR approaches with the MAX. 93. Production ramp-up and recovery. In late January 2020, production was expected to restart in April and take a year and a half to clear the inventory of 400 airplanes, ramping up slowly and building over time. Boeing might have delivered 180 stored jets by year-end and produce an equal number. 94. Boeing did not disclose any possible effect on deliveries caused by the FAA's withdrawal of Boeing's delegated authority to certify the airworthiness of each aircraft. 95. MAX supplier